Next on the list is the comparison. Comparison is the most common thing. We have already studied the conditionals, and conditions are based on the comparison, what we found out on the comparison. It's gonna be really quick, really easy. So let me go on to the full screen mode and try to show you what I mean by comparison. So I can compare two values, whether they are equal, whether they are not equal, or less than, greater than, less than equal to, greater than equal to, and in fact, I have named all the comparison here. So let's just say, for example, I want to compare 2. So I'm gonna say 2 double equals 2. So whether it gives me a true or false. So we can say it gives us true, obviously. Important part is double equal. This is a newbie mistake. A lot of people forget to apply double equal and just use one equal. And using one equal is wrong because that's an assignment operator. It assigns a value. It assigns the right hand value into the left hand side, and that's all about it. Pretty simple, isn't it? And you can do a lot of other checks. Like for example, I can check for not equality as well by using exclamation and equal, and I can say simply like 2 is not equals to 2, which is obviously going to give me a false. But if I check it for 1, yes, you can have values here, a, b, x, y, whatever you wish. I like to show you on the direct meat part. So this is true, obviously. And you can do similar comparison here. It's pretty simple. There is no extra terrestrial science here going on. 2 is less than 4. Obviously, you know the result of it, and you can change the sign as well. For example, let me check if 2 is less than 4 as well. Obviously, you know the result. It's going to be true. But you can do another thing here. Let me show you quickly what I mean by that. When I check 2 is less than 2, it's going to give me a false result because 2 is not greater than or not less than 2. But I can apply one more sign here, less than or equal to, so you can check 2 condition at a time as well. And just like there is a greater than equal, there is less than equal as well, which you can easily have it. So you can check it by your own. Now let's write a little bit of the code. So let's just say I say that the score is going to be, say, let's put a high score of 111. Now that's a strange number, but that's what I came up with. And I want to write a conditional for it. So let's just say I use a if. So I'm gonna check a condition here, and I'm gonna say something like if. Now notice interesting thing here. Now if the score is greater than 100, and I move on to the code part. I want to print a message to the user simply saying that you scored a high score. That's a easy high score. So we can see at the bottom the result is being out there, and I can put else part as well. So let's put a else part first of all here, and then talk a little bit about here. So in the else part, I can simply use a print statement, and we can say you missed the high score, and there we go. Okay, so obviously our score is greater than 100, that's why this message is being printed. But what if the score was somewhat like 24? Then it says you missed the high score. So that's how the programming logic goes on. So you can see it was pretty easy to have the comparison, and now we have understood the comparison in a much better and practical scenario where you want to have this. Now let's say you want to design a simple app that simply says checks out the temperature somehow from the APIs of the Yahoo, and then prompts a message to the user saying if the temperature is, let's say, more than 40 degrees, which is pretty hot, then you might want to say, hey, can you please apply a sunscreen because it's hot out there. It's really going to be a cool app if you do so. And nowadays many air conditions are app based, so you can just turn on the AC from the apps, and all of these can monitor the temperature. The possibilities are endless, my friends, and there we go. Okay, so this is the one part of the things that I wanted to talk about, but there is also one part of the operators which I really want to talk, and that is the range. So range is pretty simple. It just says 1 and then 3 dots and then 6. So this actually points out that it's a countable close range. If I just click on this, it says lower bound. I want to check the lower bound is 1, the upper bound is gonna be 6. So it's a countable close range. It's an inclusive range. So 1 is also included and 6 is also included. If I click on this guy, it just gives me upper bound and lower bound, and just to explain my example a little bit more, I would like to use a loop here. So let's just use a syntax of for, oops, what am I typing? For, and let's just say for v in, let's just use a range of 1 dot 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 6 and print it out. So print, let's just print a v, simply v. Let's make it very, very simple. And it's gonna run in a minute. It's really sometimes slow. Okay, it's ready. So it says the loop has been running 6 times, but it just gives you 6. But at the bottom it says the values are being printed from 1 to 6. So this is known as the closed range operator, and you can apply loops and things like that. But there are a couple of others as well, like half open range operator. Now let me convert this only into the half range operator by using this sign out there. Now this, you can see, is not an inclusive range, and all the change that we have seen is the 6 is now not included. It just says from 1 to 5, and that's the only difference. Most of the time, if you'll ask me, I'll use the half range operator on the arrays because these are not inclusive. What are the arrays? We'll talk about that later on. Don't you worry about that. If you're coming from any other programming language, you might be already familiar with the arrays, but in case you are not, just assume this is spatial data type, just like integers and strings. We'll talk about that later on. We do have a movie for it, and we'll talk about there. Okay, so these are the basics of operations. This is the one. Let me put inclusive range here as non-inclusive range here as well. 1 dot dot and this guy, and then let's just say 6. So this will give you a little bit of idea, and just by watching the exercise file you can actually revise the entire topics, comparisons, the if and else, the inclusive, non-inclusive, and a loop as well. What else is gonna be there out? Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it out there. If you did enjoy it, please do rate the course. I really like to see your kind words out there.